If you're watching this video, it means that a Nintendo Direct has recently been announced, and I'm here to tell you that I know exactly what's going to happen. I can't reveal my sources, but I have a complete knowledge of everything that is going to happen at the Nintendo Direct. We have to be quick before the Nintendo ninjas get me, so let's go right into it. The very first thing that's going to be announced is... Hey look! A Nintendo Direct's been announced! Let's talk about that. I'm going to divide this video into 4 different parts. The first part is going to be me listing all of the things that I think are going to be most likely at the upcoming Direct. Next, we're going to go over some things that I think are still pretty likely, but not as likely as the announcements in the first section. After that, we're going to have a dream list of anything I think would be really cool to see announced, regardless of how likely it is. For every announcement or game I list, I'm going to give it a rating from 1 to 10. 1 is going to represent a gamer announcement that I think is almost certainly not going to happen, and 10 is something I believe is guaranteed to happen. After that, we're going to go a little bit crazy, and I'm going to attempt to actually predict the entire lineup for the upcoming Direct, at least to a certain extent. So without further ado, let's discuss the upcoming Direct. The big thing on everyone's minds, of course, is the Breath of the Wild sequel. I think that this has a very good chance of getting shown. Even though it was delayed, I still think that there's going to be some sort of trailer coming up, probably a name reveal. I give this a 9.5 out of 10. Now, as a side note, one thing that I think a lot of people, myself included, really want to see out of this game is some sort of playable Zelda. And I do think that that possibility still exists, but I do think it's unlikely. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. Another game that a lot of people are looking forward to, myself included, is Splatoon 3. This game is coming out in just a couple of months. I find it nearly inconceivable that this game wouldn't get shown. I'm going to put this also at a 9.5 out of 10. Up next, we have Xenoblade 3, a game I'm personally really excited for. This game is coming out next month, so I really think that this game has a solid chance of getting shown, but at the same time, a lot of trailers for this game have been shown elsewhere. I do think that this game is more than likely going to get shown just by virtue of how soon it is, and this would be another opportunity to show a big trailer and get attention on it. So I'm going to give Xenoblade 3 an 8 out of 10. Of course, another thing I think is really likely is Mario Kart. Of course, we've got the Mario Kart DLC pack for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I think we're going to be seeing the next wave of tracks for that. I give this one a 9.5 out of 10. On the topic of DLC, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is also coming out pretty soon. I think that this one has a pretty good chance. I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Getting a little bit more vague for some of these last ones, I think Square Enix is probably going to be showing something. Whether that be something related to Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, the upcoming Live Alive. I mean, there's just a lot of different options with Square Enix, obviously. And then Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest are just such major, huge series that there could just be anything related to those. And of course, Live Alive is coming out really soon as well. I think that Square Enix has a 9 out of 10 chance of showing up. My last item for this category is actually going to be a prediction of something that isn't going to be shown. I do not believe that we are going to be seeing anything related to Scarlet and Violet. Of course, this is something that I think was already on a lot of people's minds since Pokemon for the last few years has kind of done their own thing separate from Nintendo. Of course, at the start of June, we had the new Pokemon trailer, so I think that was going to be the equivalent of what Pokemon would do during E3. So I give Pokemon not showing up a 9 out of 10. Up next, let's talk about the things that I think have a good chance of getting shown, but aren't as certain about as with the earlier announcements. One big thing that people have been talking about for a while is, of course, Nintendo Switch Online and the possibility of adding Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games to the service. I probably would have been less certain about this one if it weren't for the fact that recently there were reported leaks of a in-house Nintendo Game Boy Advance emulator, and that makes me think that there is a pretty significant chance that Nintendo Switch Online could be adding Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games soon. I give this one a 7 out of 10. Of course, Fire Emblem is a big one right now. In addition to Fire Emblem 3 Hopes releasing pretty soon, I think that we're going to be seeing a new Fire Emblem game shortly. Whether that be a remake or an entirely new game, I think that Fire Emblem is about to have a brand new game coming out and probably be announced soon. I give this an 8.5 out of 10. Of course, Bayonetta 3 is a game that was shown at last year's E3, and I think there's a good chance that it might get shown again, perhaps with an updated release date, or maybe a delay if it does. I give this one a 7 out of 10. course, Nintendo Switch Sports is also a thing, and it's probably going to be getting an update of some sort, adding in more sports. Also, 7 out of 10 that it might get shown. I also think that Mario Sports is going to get shown as well. Mario Strikers Charged, or some sort of new Mario game. I'm not sure if there's going to be another new one. It'll probably just be Strikers. I give this one an 8 out of 10. Up next is something related to Metroid. Oh, Metroid, the big one. Whether that be Metroid Prime or something 2D, probably not. It'd probably have to be Metroid Prime, whether that be the Metroid Prime Collection, or a Metroid Prime Remake, or Metroid Prime 4, the big one itself. Honestly, this one's a little bit more on the fence. I might give this one a 6 out of 10. Up next, we have a new 3D Mario. It's been a while, and I think it's getting close to time for us to have a new one of these. Though, Nintendo is a little bit unpredictable, especially when it comes to 3D Mario games. I give this one a 4 out of 10. On the topic of Mario, however, we do have the Mario movie. And that is set to come out, I believe, next year. I think it got delayed, like it was supposed to come out in December, but it got delayed. Will we see a trailer maybe? I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work and how even a trailer would be shown. Would that be during a Nintendo Direct or something else? I give the Mario movie a 6 out of 10 chance. Pikmin 4 is a game that I believe was actually announced to be in development, but it was never officially shown or announced or teased, just kind of stated. So I think there's a good chance that we may possibly see that, but I think it's kind of an off chance. I give this one a 3.5. Another game that I'm not super sure about is a new Donkey Kong game, whether that be a new Donkey Kong Country or something. There have been rumors swirling, but I'm just not as certain on this one. I give this also a 3.5. Something else I do think is a lot more likely, though, is Advance Wars. This is one that Nintendo has kind of been publicizing a fair bit, and I think that it has a good chance of showing up again. 6 out of 10. Another game coming out soon that I'm looking forward to is I, the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. Yes, the sequel to I, the Somnium Files. And I think it has a decent chance of showing up, some sort of final trailer, because it's going to be releasing like right at the end of June. 6 out of 10. Digimon Survive, a game that has seemed to be vaporware for the longest time and kept getting delayed over and over again, has finally got a release date as well as some new trailers. I think that there's a good chance that we could see something on this, but I'm kind of on the fence. 5 out of 10. Up next, we have something Persona related. Persona has been celebrating its 25th anniversary, and I've said for a while that I think we're going to see some sort of remake or compilation of old Persona games, whether that be Persona 1 and 2 or maybe Persona 3. And I think releasing those on the Switch seems like a good opportunity. I give the odds of a Persona game showing up at 4 out of 10. Lastly for this section, we have Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, an indie game that I've been looking forward to. And while I do think that it has a chance of getting shown, this feels more like a game that would be shown off during an indie direct. I give this one a 4 out of 10. Now on to the things that I would really love to see, as unlikely as they are. The first one is a new Ace Attorney game. I am a huge Ace Attorney fan. I think that this is probably the most likely one on this list, just because Ace Attorney has gone several years now without a brand new game. Everything has been remakes or compilations, and I would like to see a new compilation maybe of the other Miles Edgeworth games. That would be a chance for us to get the second Miles Edgeworth game here in the West, and would mark the final Ace Attorney game that has yet to be released in the West. I give Ace Attorney a 2 out of 10. On the topic of Ace Attorney, one game that I've always wanted to play but never had the opportunity to is Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. This is another game made by the Ace Attorney team, and I would think it would be really cool to see this game get ported to the Switch. Maybe they could bring it over, add in some new content, update the graphics, and call it Ghost Trick Spooky Edition or something, I don't know. But I think it would be really cool to see, but unfortunately I think it's really unlikely. I think this is probably the most unlikely one here, just because this series has barely seen anything for many years. I give this one a 0.1 out of 10. Next, we have Kid Icarus. I adored Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS, and I would love to see some sort of new Kid Icarus game for the Switch. Unfortunately, it seems like Kid Icarus has kind of fallen by the wayside yet again, so I'm going to have to give this one a 0.5 out of 10. On to something that I think has more of a chance, either a Switch port of Tomodachi Life or a totally new Tomodachi game. These games are a lot of fun, and I think it would be really fun to see this get ported to the Switch or have a brand new entry. Not to mention that Miitopia got brought over to the Switch, so why not bring over Tomodachi Life? I give this a 3 out of 10. I think a new Star Fox game is definitely overdue. I think that this is also something that has a decent chance, as Nintendo seems to have some slight interest in Star Fox, marginally. Also kind of a 3 out of 10. I think an F-Zero game would be really cool as well, but I think that this is also much less likely than Star Fox. 1 out of 10. Of course, it wouldn't be Nintendo speculation without talking about Mother. Whether that be some sort of remake of Mother and Mother 2, or perhaps, maybe, just maybe, the one we've all been wanting, a translation of Mother 3, perhaps on the Game Boy Advance? Probably not. 1 out of 10. One game that I personally think would be cool to see is The World Ends With You 2. While I still have yet to beat Neo The World Ends With You, I do think that there's a lot of setup in that game for possible future games, perhaps set in other cities. Perhaps they could do something similar to what Bravely Default did, where there was Bravely Second, which was a direct sequel, and then Bravely Default 2, which was a game completely its own thing. Though, since Neo The World Ends With You just released last year, I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to see a new game this soon. 1.5 out of 10. Finally, we have a game that I think would make a lot of people really, really happy, myself included, and that is some sort of Chrono Trigger on the Switch. Whether that be on Nintendo Switch Online, or, God, please let this happen, a full-on remake in the Octopath Traveler or Live Alive style, I think that something Chrono Trigger related would be awesome, and kinda seems like what they might be trying to at least gauge interest in with Chrono Cross. I give this a 2.5 out of 10. So now that we've talked about my predictions, let's actually go even crazier. Let's go in and let's actually try to predict the entire lineup of the Nintendo Direct. I took a look at past Nintendo Directs and tried to mimic the pattern of their announcements with this one, as well as going with what I believe is pretty likely. So of course, the very first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be an intro, of course. We're going to see somebody from Nintendo talk and say something about, you know, the announcements and, you know, please look forward to it, blah, blah, blah. And I think the very first thing that we're going to see, though, the very first game is going to be Splatoon 3. I think that we're going to get a pretty decent sized trailer for this that's going to really show off new game modes and stuff and really go in depth a little bit more. After that, I think we're going to have a little bit of time where we're just going to have miscellaneous stuff. This could be miscellaneous announcements and games, you know, the usual, just like stuff that you can't really predict or that's already been shown. After this, I think we're going to go into sort of a update/DLC period, where we're going to see the new Mario Kart DLC courses, as well as a Nintendo Switch Online update. Whether that be new games or Game Boy Advance games, it's going to be something to do with Nintendo Switch Online, followed by an update of some sort to Nintendo Switch Sports. After that, we'll have 1 or 2 miscellaneous trailers for miscellaneous games, and then we'll have a decently sized trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. After Xenoblade Chronicles 3, though, I think we're going to see something big. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think usually around the middle, we're going to have some sort of big left field announcement. This is going to be this Direct's equivalent of Metroid Dread. Something that's going to make people go crazy. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think it's going to be big. After that, we're going to have a few more miscellaneous games announcements and trailers, followed by a short trailer for Fire Emblem Warriors. It's going to show off some new gameplay, maybe hint at some story elements, but then we're going to go into something else. I think this is where we're going to see a new Fire Emblem game get announced. I don't know if it's going to be a big trailer or if it's just going to be something that teases it. I think I'm probably leaning more toward the latter. It's probably going to be just like a really vague wartime battle thing, and then it's going to like just fade out and say like 2023 or something. But I do think that showing it alongside Fire Emblem Warriors would be a good way to drum up hype for both games. After that, we'll have a couple more miscellaneous game announcements, maybe some sort of reel. And then I think we're going to see a short trailer for Bayonetta 3 that's going to announce a release date. Maybe the release date has been pushed back, maybe it hasn't, I don't know, but I think we're going to see something. After that, we're going to have probably a pretty big, sizable chunk of just miscellaneous trailers. Once again, maybe like a reel like they like to do, where they just show off stuff. And then we're going to have Breath of the Wild 2. Something. It's going to go somewhat in depth, and it's going to reveal the title of the game. Maybe it'll give a release date, I don't know if that's been totally locked on yet, but I do think we're going to see some new gameplay, we're going to see the title, and we're going to find out why they were keeping the title a secret. Whatever reason they had for keeping the title secret is going to get shown here. However, I don't know if Breath of the Wild 2 is even going to be the last thing they show. I think that there's a significant chance that maybe there's going to be a one more thing here. The one more thing could be Breath of the Wild 2, but I do think that after this they're going to say one more thing, and it's going to be something, and it's going to be big, and it's going to make people go crazy. I don't know if it's going to be Nintendo directly, or if it's going to be something that's second party like with Xenoblade, or, you know, I just think that we're going to see something here at the very end. I think it's going to be short, but I think it's going to be really big. Maybe this is Metroid Prime 4. I don't know. Maybe we could have some sort of update on that, actually show some gameplay. I don't know. So these are my predictions for the Nintendo Direct, as well as my prediction for the entire Direct lineup. Was it a little bit optimistic? Probably, but I think that's kind of the fun of it. Let's get a little crazy and just kind of go all out with our predictions. And of course, my predictions come with a 100% guarantee of at least one of these probably happening. Also, be sure to let me know in the comments, what games and announcements are you hoping to see at the Nintendo Direct? I'm also curious to see how this video ages once the Direct actually happens. I'm either going to be completely off base or I'm going to be spot on and it's going to be really weird if it's the latter.